I love you. I'm literally obsessed with you. I'm like literally coming to your house. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. And we are back with another fabulous, fantastic, amazing episode. And I say this every time, and I will continue to say, I say this every time. But what a #gift and #blessed that every fucking guest is so amazing. Like I think about it, I'm like, holy shit, like every guest has brought us some type of insight, knowledge, wisdom, like in their area of expertise. And it's like, oh my God, like it's so juicy that we get to collaborate, or I get to collaborate. We all get to collaborate on these episodes. And I'm just obsessed. I get more and more obsessed with who comes onto the episode. So in slew of being obsessed with my guests, this next human is, God bless, chef's kiss, live, laugh, love, an amazing human that I am truly #obsessed with. My amazing next guest is the one and only Marisa Sullivan, who is a modern day mystic, God bless, based in Brooklyn, New York. And I have to read you her little sum up bio. Get ready. It just makes me giggle. It makes me so happy. She's a soccer mom, a tantrika, and a pleasure witch. Like, hi. I'm going to read the rest of her bio and then I'm going to introduce my friend. But like, can we just like talk about that for just a moment? Like, that we both are so fucking divine. Like, we're pleasure witches, or we're in our divinity, but also we're human. A soccer mom. You know, like that bio literally, and when we talked about it, I was like, holy shit, like that made me shake of excitement. So I just want to call that out. Like, thank you for both having the divinity, holding the divinity with yourself and the human. So we could talk about that for 4 hours on another day. We probably will. But more about my beautiful guest. So she teaches women, folks, and couples sexual empowerment and sacred sexuality. She coaches decolonizing sexual health practices such as womb steaming and breast/chest massage. She counsels how to maximize the magic and medicine of sexual juiciness, how to be authentic in our sexual expression, feeling into our yeses and our nos, yes, and understanding the power of pleasure, not just in sexuality, but joy and pleasure in our bodies and in our everyday life. Talk about being a human, balancing the mundane, making juicy and pleasure. We'll get into it. In addition to all that, she also is a huge advocate for sexual health, and that means menstrual cycles, harnessing fertility, healing sexual organs, and oh my God, can't wait to talk. So there's so much that she does, and really, when we boil it down to the core, she's a mind, body, life journey healer who uses so many different modalities, and she really deeply holds us. And she, across the board, has done so much. She's so well trained and certified and all the things. Some include multiple yoga streams and meditation, including pelvic floor yoga, pre and post natal. She's a Reiki master, womb steaming, deep study of the wheel of consent. And she has this I love, as you know, she has a master's in theater for educational and therapeutic use. What a human. Are we ready? Are we ready to meet the fabulous Marisa? Hey.
Hi, I love you. You are so awesome.
I love you. I'm like, let's just like fucking jam. Like you're literally like my idol. And I'm just so, impressed is the wrong word, but I'm so grateful to be like in your presence. You are someone that's like truly fucking embodying the work and doing the work that we say we do. So like, thank you for fucking slaying the game. And I had all these list of questions that I wanted to get into, and we will, but I know we talked about this before we hopped on. Like, we both had a very human experience. Like, you were dealing with mommy shit. I was dealing with moving shit, and I broke a key fob, and I was like, fuck. So we both were in our anxiety, our panic. And I love that what you said was, and we both had it in our own places in the world. We're both like, we have the Zoom at 12:30 and we're talking about pleasure. So we both had, oh my God, talking about pleasure. So we both had a moment of, holy fuck, I'm in my human experience. I'm frustrated. I'm in anxiety, da, da, da. And we both had a boom moment of, okay, even within this context, within all the shit that's happening, how am I going to find my pleasure? And like, I love that we both had the medicine at the same time. Can you talk to us about that? Like that's such a big ball of a question, but like what that means to you. How do you get into pleasure? How has pleasure helped you? Like, go take us on the pleasure journey that you want to take us on.
Yeah. Yeah. It was that, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about pleasure. I have to get back to pleasure. And of course we do. And so on a nervous system level, our nervous systems, a healthy nervous system is pendulating between good and bad, unsafe. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Emergency, all is well. And in order to be in pleasure, we can't be worried that there's a lion in the room. Like, we can't be in a bad nervous system state. So, but a healthy, we're always pendulating between these. And sometimes we can very easily get stuck in the difficulty. We can get stuck in red. We can get stuck in what's not working. We can get stuck in the pain, in the suffering, and the unpleasure. We can get stuck over there. And sometimes we have to navigate ourselves back to what is working, what is pleasurable. And that's in our physical bodies. You know, I live with a chronic illness, 2 chronic illnesses. We all live with pain, you know, and sometimes your body hurts and you're not thinking about jumping around on the bed, and you have to come back and just to pause and, okay, where in my body right now do I feel good on that physical level, and tuning into that, where in my, especially if we're in pain. And then in life, you're not going to be dropping into sweetness when you're with your honey when things are difficult, and you're going to have to shift back, shift into a moment. Yeah. So that coming back to pleasure, and there's like so many levels to do this in your life. What do I got on the plate today? Can I make sure I have one awesome something today? Oh, look at my day. It's like, ooh. Let's see, walking down the street, noticing beauty. So there's this exercise from Mama Gina. It's called redigesting pleasure. So, their name dropping some of my lineage. So Mama Gina is a big teacher. I love her. She wrote the great book Pussy, and she has this exercise, redigesting pleasure. And it's interesting. It's like I have a master's in theater. Sometimes listening to my own bios, yeah, how does that come in? So I was doing this redigesting pleasure as an actress. So say you've got to come into, you're in love. So you want to sit with this person, you're in love with them. So you redigest pleasure. It's an exercise. You can do that with your honey. Hey, yesterday, when we went outside and we took that walk and I looked at you and you were so cute. It could be anything. And you go over and you relive the pleasure, and then you're invited back in. You bring that memories, that sense memory exercise. But as an actor, you do that. And then as a pleasure, just keep redigesting pleasure. And what Mama Gina said, and what happens on your nervous system, you invite more.
Exactly. Yeah. And like it's from a safety place too, right? Like because
Oh yeah.
right, like if I it doesn't feel so often, first of all, we don't even want to fucking have the conversation about pleasure. It's like get out of here. But it's you know the deal. It's like when we feel safe enough to hold it, we can invite more because we're like, "Oh shit, like I can have this in my life. I could hold this in my body. It's safe." So like you're saying like okay, like come on in. Like it's welcoming more of the crew. I'm also laughing because I'm like, oh wow, like we have to talk about this on a on our own. But I'm like, of course we're attracted to each other. We both have acting backgrounds, and we're both Mama G girls.
Oh,
So
you
yeah,
think?
that's why I'm like, we gotta. I'll
And
meet you.
Mama Gina was an actress.
Uh-huh. That's why we're attracted to this work. So I'm like, you and I will have
Yeah,
to do a coffee date or a tea date in Brooklyn.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like we gotta chat and chew. But yeah, that is so helpful. And I also want to briefly touch upon this, and I've been talking about this with clients and on the pod, the like seasons of pleasure. And I'm sure because you're a Mama G person and because you're in this world, there's different seasons and flavors of pleasure. And I know for me, because we could talk the same language, like when I was in her containers or body of work, it was very summery for me. Like I was like, wear the boa down the streets of New York. Like it was very like, wow. And now I'm in a phase or I'm in a season of like more rest pleasure. And like it transitioned. And what I want to call out how beautifully is I think sometimes pleasure has a bad rap where we expect it to be like you have to buy the $5,000 Gucci bag and you have to
right.
be which is great. Like God bless if that's your flavor, I support it. And I love that you made pleasure so digestible. Like it's not about going out and getting the $3,000 meal. God bless if that's your thing, support it, love it. But I love that you made it so here now body availability. It doesn't feel so scary and outside of ourselves. Couldn't you talk about that more like like you make it so easy and accessible?
Yeah. Well, one, I just having practice. So they're having tangible practices. So even just right now, you can hear my cat is purring, um, which I really want to know about this purring if it actually is a state of happiness and pleasure. But so there's this exercise you can do. It's called waking up the hands. Okay, and this is from the work of Betty Martin in the Wheel of Consent. And to take your hands and to take pleasure, right? So to have an exercise where you take pleasure. I'm not patting the cat right now. I'm like, I'm doing this and I feel now that it's a practice, I feel so much. So I'm not patting the cat to make the cat happy. I'm taking pleasure in the fur. I'm waking up my hands. I'm allowing my hands as they touch the cat to take pleasure. So at any given moment, anywhere on your skin is some feeling of pleasure. Where is it right now? Often for me, the hair tickling my neck. Just tuning into pleasure, tuning into it. So that waking up the hands, that does a lot of things. One, you're allowing your hands to take more pleasure. You're also stepping into not just receiving, but I'm doing the action, but it's for me. I'm taking pleasure. So like I could say, Erica, if I wanted to take pleasure with you, oh God, right? There's so much.
I know, like, please, I'm into it.
Can I mean, your skin is so beautiful. Yeah, your shoulders. Can I like take my hand and just feel the kind of creaminess of your skin? May I? And could it be for me? It might feel good to you, but may I do it so that I can experience your skin?
How beautiful is that? That's such a nice conversation too around consent.
Yeah. And that whole idea. So now we've jumped in, right? So there's practice. So practicing ways to turn to pleasure. I love what you said about seasons. So I want to go back there. But now we've moved into this, like who's touching and who is it for?
Yes.
So that same thing. So here I'm going to say, may I take my fingers along the skin of the front of your shoulder? And it's for me. That's a may I. And I'm going to do the action, but it's for me. Now I could say, Erica, would you like to receive some touch right now? Or would you like to receive anything from me right now? What would you like?
Mm.
And let's just pretend that you want me to touch across the front of your shoulder. But maybe you want it differently. So, will you take your fingers and just push against the front of my shoulder and give me resistance so I can feel that weight and pressure? So I could be doing the same thing, touching the front of your shoulder, but now I'm giving what you want and it's for you. I'm doing the action, but it's for you.
Oh, that's so good. And also, oh my God, there's so many ways we can go with this. I have to touch on this, that so often this conversation is not had, obviously about the consent thing, but B, the other thing is like, I don't even know what I want. So like, right? Like, yeah,
yep,
so it's
you went exactly there. That was right behind us. Then before this is, what do I even fucking want?
Yep.
Has anybody ever asked me? Do I ever ask myself? Why don't I ask myself? What do I want? That's it's huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Yeah, and because this is our one of our origin stories. You know the quote, which I'm going to bring up. I mean, I think I'm going to butcher it, but you know where I'm going. The Dangerous Beauty quote: "To know pleasure is to." Oh yes, okay, okay. I might be butchering it, but so remember in Dangerous Beauty. Remember, you've watched Dangerous Beauty, right?
Which one's Dangerous Beauty?
Remember the movie about the courtesan?
I love that movie.
It's so good. And remember, the mom was like getting her ready and teaching her about pleasure. And she was saying, hold on, I might need to Google it, but she was saying, I believe what she was saying was something about to give pleasure, is to know pleasure is to give pleasure. Essentially what she was saying is you can't be performative.
Right.
Like she's like, you can, but that's not good. The Cliff Notes is she was like, you're not going to get anything from that. She's like, so to really get, that's what it is. To give pleasure is to know pleasure. So meaning to really be like hold space for someone, to give them deep, divine, holding space pleasure, you need to know what that is in your body. You need to know what that is and have a relationship with it. And so often we go and we rip ourselves outside of our body to go into performative mode and to, dance around. So this exercise was so helpful about highlighting, what the hell do I even like? And how can I make it safe enough to speak this to someone else, or make it safe enough if it's a solo practice?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can go at it from both places of giving and receiving. So this work of Betty Martin and the wheel, it's called the wheel of consent, is the body of work. And you work with this diagram, which is called the 4 quadrants of touch. So it's a circle cut into 4 pieces of a pie. And you have on one end is giving, and then over the other side of that is receiving. So giving and receiving. Then the opposite 2 paired quadrants are taking, what I was talking about before, in taking pleasure and allowing. May I do this? Yes, you may.
Ooh.
Yes. So say you want to receive pleasure, you have to know what it is you want to receive. Instead of like, here, I'm going to give you this. Is that what you want? And then there is like, you can do it from that way. I'm going to kiss your neck. No, actually, I don't want you to kiss my neck. Will you kiss my forearm? And then you could be like, no, what I want to receive is, so will you kiss my forearm? I want you to kiss up and down my forearm. Then say you want to give, but what do they want to receive?
Right. Yeah, it's so this whole practice is so interesting, and I want to ask too. Go with me on this. I want to sidebar because I'm like, ooh, we're on to something, and I'm also curious, like, because we're going into the sensual realm, which God bless, we could talk about for 5 hours. And
right, the different levels of touch.
Yes,
therapeutic and affirmative touch, and then we often jump to sexual touch, and there's this whole realm of sensual.
Yes,
like glorious.
Yes, for partnership, but for ourselves. Even I know for me, when I have to calm my nervous system, sometimes with clients, like I literally will be stroking my leg or my foot just to be like, whew, I'm resourcing and I'm in my body. Like, can you talk to us about ways that you get back to pleasure? Like, let me ask you this, because I'm obsessed with this question personally. Like, I always ask people in our field, like, I'm curious. Like, I feel like I'm doing a research project, but like, how do you, we're human, right? Which we talked about before. Like you had mommy stuff, I had anxiety stuff before we got on. How do you prioritize pleasure? And what does that look like for you? Is it different? Like, is some days, some moments, is it touch? Like,
Right.
yeah. So can you talk about like how do you keep the importance of pleasure at the forefront of your brain?
Yeah. 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 And again, it's like doing it on every level. So one level, I take care of my body. I make sure that my body is doing movement that my body enjoys. Just even like, and I do teach a lot of therapeutic yoga still. And even I like to teach like yoga in a nursing home to dementia people. I've always liked old people. And so move in a way that makes you feel good. Like
Yes.
instead of do Tadasana, do a sun salute, like, hey, what does your body want to do right now? I want to jump up and down. So making sure that your body is moving in ways that are pleasurable. So that's one thing. Every day I move. And I take dance breaks, like Mama Gina talks about that. A lot of people taking a dance break, and then you move how you want to move. I love Gaga dancing. So Gaga, how do I even exert to a point that feels like pleasure, use my muscles and feel the pleasure. So practices where I'm physically feeling pleasure in my body in all the ways that it wants to. And then within your life, that your life is a pleasurable life. So again, like, what am I doing today? Do I have something that I really want to do? And making sure in my day that there's something. And you can and I love to do this practice sometimes where I don't know what I'm going to do. I often do this actually. It's kind of open and I'm just going to follow my pleasure. I might take an afternoon and go to the Manhattan, or I'm going to go out and I'm just going to go where I want to go that day.
Yes. I'm like, how the fuck? Because I was like, oh, I thought about this yesterday. I'm like, I should talk about this in the pod. And I'm like, nah. And I let it go. And I'm like, of course we fucking got here. But a sister goddess, which
And hold on to it for 1 second, because I wanted one thing before we
go there, please.
And we'll come back to your
yes.
And within our relationships, and this is huge. And so when I work with couples, like especially when you're parenting, you're both working, you're holding a house, and I deal with a lot of couples who also work together. So then they're working together, and then they have a moment to sit down, and what do they talk about? And so it's make sure you're having fun together in all of your relationships, all of them.
Yes.
You go to the work meeting and there's some piece of it that's fun or it's pleasurable, like whatever it is. If you have really great iced tea on the table, or, you all take a moment and check in and how are you, and talk about something fun.
Yes.
Talk about, hey, what did you do? Then in a way, when we do that, how was your weekend? Name a really beautiful part of your weekend, right? So all of your relationships, you're making sure that there's some pleasure. And then you're back to that. What do I really want? What is date night? Is date night a candlelight expensive relationship? Dinner. When I say relationship, an expensive, or what do we want to do? So there's this beautiful question. And so this is I guess I got this, from the Wheel of Consent, where you say, you just do, what do I want? So two of you often ask that question, what do I want? And you can do something where for 2 or 3, it's usually 3 minutes, one person just says everything they want. So with your partner, taking a moment and like, hey, I want to go to Cape Cod with you. I've always gone there. I want to take you to Cape Cod. I want to go to this place with you. I want to go horseback riding. And I want to make doll. I want to go to that jumpy house that we saw, and I love it with partners and dates. I love when they see that and they do it and they say, hey, what do you want to do? But really letting that question drop. What do you want to do this weekend? And I let it be profound. And I'm not going to like the automatic. Well, right now, I think I want, like this happened last night. I wanted to go to the bouncy house. And then my day changed. And I was like, I want to lay on the couch and have you stroke my head because I've had a hard time and I want to watch a funny movie.
Yeah, that's so good. And like, I think you hit it so beautifully. Like, it can be so profound. And yet, and we share this language in this work where so often, we glaze upon, how are you? Or what do you want? I'm okay. Like, we're so used to
Yeah.
bonding and like, it's okay. And also like, what's the other thing? What do you want? How are you? Oh, and you know this because it's again shared work. I'll go on just to touch it. I'm not going to go really into it, but like celebrating, bonding and
Mm.
celebrating, right? Like we so know how to bond as a culture, and oh my God, my kids are so fucking, and no, like where there's a space for that. Like I'm not saying let's bypass shit. Like there is a space to, like
Yeah,
vomit
yeah,
it all
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah,
But you know the deal. Like as a
yeah,
culture, we
yeah.
bond in the negative, and
Yes,
we
yes,
don't prompt each other in community. Like, no, come on, tell me what you really want. Like that's not the narrative.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
yeah, I was laughing because like I was saying, and I was like, oh, it's so good with the sister goddess yesterday. We were playing. It's so good to be in community with people that share similar beliefs. That's why I love you so much for many reasons. But but we
Sister
were
Goddess.
saying, yeah, just goddess, but just goddess. But we were laughing because she said, okay, we're going to do an exercise. I said, okay. She goes, we're just going to follow our pleasure.
Yeah,
And I go, oh, okay. And I'm a little shy. I mean, I'm not, but like with that type of stuff.
yeah.
And she goes, I dare you. I'm going to put it all on you. Like in a loving way. She goes, and you're going to lead us. And we're in Manhattan. And she goes, you're going to lead us. Have your pleasure guide us.
Mm,
And
mm.
the shit we did yesterday, we could have never made up. Like we just were following like,
Oh,
oh my gosh, and this makes us feel alive and this
yeah.
makes us feel alive. And I have to share this as we were walking to each adventure, like where the fuck are we now? But we're following it. It makes us feel alive. And
Yeah.
first of all, I want to highlight how beautiful it is to be in such a community such as this. And that's why I love doing this work. I'm sure you do too, that we can welcome more people into these type of conversations. What a better life, and world we would have. But as we were walking and following our pleasure, she was asking, she goes, okay. And we were asking each other, she goes, what do you really desire? And we were I had a rose in my hand I took a class. And so I said, bibbity boppity boo, we're gonna pretend this is the wand. And we kept lovingly pushing each other, like, no, like genuinely, what do you desire? And I said, and we kept prompting, like, okay, if we had a full day in New York City, like, I want the crispy details, like, give it to me.
Right.
And you know the deal, like, so often
The
we're just
details,
like,
the details, yeah.
the details, and so often we're like, oh, I don't know, I'm fine, I could have this. It's like, no, like to be held into truly what you want and to like allow that for yourself. So I love the tool that you were suggesting with yourself or with partnership of like, what do you want?
Yeah.
No. What do you want? Like it sounds, oh, that's so simple, but we know that shit is so fucking profound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
it's
good.
so good.
And I love too that being able to name it and say it, right? So first that it's 3 separate steps. Okay. So step 1 is, what do you want? Boom. So I want to go horseback riding. And then step 2 is asking. So then if it involves or making it happen, asking for it to happen, will you go horseback riding with me? That's the next step. Say if I want to go horseback riding, and I really want with you. It's also it's time relationship dependent. What do I want to do with myself? What do I want to do with you? And so will you go horseback riding with me? Because I really want to go with you. Whatever it is. Watch your butt go up and down on the back of the horse. Or I know you love horses too, or whatever it is. I want to do it with you. And so that's the second. Will you go horseback riding with me? Is the ask. And then it's a completely separate step to receive the yes or the no.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. And at each step, it's actually, and so often and this is like, we had mentioned it. Why don't we ask ourselves what we want? And the biggest thing a lot of us say is because I might not get it. Because I know I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it anyway. This makes me cry, right? I know I'm not going to get it, so I'm just not going to ask for it. And the funny thing is, if you state it, if you hear it, in that step of just saying it, you already get it on some level. You already get it. That's what we have with that sense memory. If you start to think of riding a horse and you start to feel that horse's fur and you start to feel your body again, you already get some of it, right? You already get it. So then you ask for it, and then it's kind of like, sorry, Marisa, I don't believe in riding on horses. I'm really into animal rights and I just don't ride on a horse. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get that. And then you're like, okay, well, Erica doesn't want to ride a horse. That's okay. Maybe we'll go to a salon where they have one of those rocking horses things that you sit on and you go up and down and go, radio. And you still got what you wanted on this other angle you didn't know about. And then maybe I'll go with my other friend or I'll go by myself. But on like you're got your want and somehow you're on the path to that want. And the path, it's open to make that happen within your own neurosystem. And on some level, we get it just by asking and listening to our own wants.
I'm obsessed. I did an exercise in a retreat once, and it was like, I want you with a partner to just speak your desire. And we obviously weren't going to do these things. It was just to practice receiving a yes and a no. And it's so funny because I was like, I'm having fucking anxiety about like A, saying this, and B, getting a no. And what shocked me was the no didn't disturb me.
It doesn't often.
Right? I was like, what?
Why would you want somebody to be doing something with you that they don't want to do?
Yes.
And so then they're on with that within the no. It's also, you might be willing. Like back to that horse riding example, like, oh, I'm a little bit afraid of riding a horse, but I actually feel really safe with you. And you know what? I'm willing. I don't want to go horseback riding, but because I know and trust you and you often make me feel safe, like I'm willing to try it. And then you can bring in a limit with that. I'm willing to try horseback riding with you if it's okay, if at any point I'm not comfortable, that we just stop and I get to get off the horse and go back and you can go do what you want. But I'm willing to do this with you with that limit, right?
It's so hot and cool to be met. Then there's a real level of trust.
Yeah.
Like that, through that exercise and trying to embody that in real life. Like when people say no, I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, I'm sure you've had this too. Like if clients are like, hey, I need to take a month break. I'm so sorry. Like, for finance or this, I'm like, yes. I'm like, that makes me thrilled. That means the work is working. Like you're listening to your truth. Like, fuck yeah. Like I support that. And so, yeah, it
we
makes
can only
you feel
be in consent when both parties are in consent. It's not just about our own consent. That's where, coercion is not consent.
Yeah, that is, thank you. Because, I want to highlight that too, because remember doing an exercise like that, I was like, it's going to give me anxiety. I'm going to feel bad. And I was like, this feels great. Thank you. Now I know your limits and I know and I trust you.
And when we do these exercises, and you do it back to safety, right? You do these exercises of asking the question, and often I'll make people practice saying no. And I'll also, I'll make you'll practice saying no and also practice receiving the no. So then you get to experience, and sometimes you're disappointed. You could be disappointed. Again, I could be disappointed that Erica doesn't want to go horseback riding with me. But then I go and find somebody else, or whatever,
right?
And then, yes. But so you could be disappointed, but generally we have this experience of feeling the no, and pretty much all the time we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, yes. I'm disappointed, but it's also cool. Or like, whoa, that feels amazing. I didn't even know how good that was going to feel to receive the no. So you do these exercises, these consent exercises with non-sexual. It's also important you take take this, make it completely safe. You do, if you're going to do touch exercises, they're non-genital, non-sexual touches that could be sensual. They could feel really good. You could have sexual feelings, but you're not going to act on them. And you do them in this safe place so you can feel what you feel, that you notice what you notice. You experience receiving that no, and you start to understand what that feels like. So then when you go into a bigger thing, like the exercise we were having earlier, the topic we were talking about earlier, where we were talking about pubic hair. So that when you come to, like, with your honey, asking a big question and being ready that you might get a no, so I now want to ask my honey, like, not to shave his pubic hair because the stubble, I don't like the stubble, right? So we're going to, see what the no is. So will you grow your pubic hair? Because I don't like the stubble. And I mean, I know he doesn't want me to be with it. So we already talked about it, but like finding, where are those places and experiencing when you are afraid of the no. So you practice in these safe zones. So then you can say them with the bigger questions.
Yes. And I have to highlight this before we transition. Like, something that shocked me, like I said, receiving the no, I was like, oh, that's hot. And it was powerful because I was like, it's hot. I was like, this is so powerful.
You're like, honey, like, you get the no, like, oh, you don't want that? What? Because on the other side of the no is what you do want.
Yes, that's that. You literally read my mind, and that's exactly what I was getting at. Exactly that. And what was so cool is that, like, in that container, in that space, then we can create play and conversation and possibility. Because it was like, this is a no. But you know what's a yes for me? And then that was like the magic, the collaboration. It wasn't like, I was like, oh, this is such a sweet spot where we both can collaborate and make magic. And so I have to highlight that because that shocked me. Because I thought, oh, this is just going to be like, a disappointing exercise. But I'm like, oh, what I really saw was that's where we can really meet people. That's where we can really dance. That's where we can really jam and play. And I love this work so much. I have to transition because I'm like, it's so good. I have to transition to another aspect of your work that is so fabulous, is the hormonal, well, maybe we should start with one thing at a time because there's so many good things. Can you talk to us? I know I recently have been on my journey of the hormonal balancing, and I was very ignorant for many years about it, and I thought it'd all be well. And now I'm like, oh shit, like, I didn't realize. Can you talk to us about, like, hormonal balancing, vaginal steaming, which I fucking love, like, all the things that that really give you juice to that area?
Well, like, lately I realize how much that often the work I'm doing is that meeting of sexual health and sexual pleasure. And if we go back to that blue, because obviously if we're having discomfort on a hormone, if you're having discomfort in your cycle, if you're having a hormonal imbalance, there's going to be some discomfort. So you may not be motivated towards the pleasure again. So they're going to interface each other, sexual health and sexual pleasure. So the hormone stuff, I mean, it's so big.
It's so big. Can I pause and ask, because you just said something really big that I'm like, holy shit, I wanted to, because you and I were talking pre-pod and we were saying about, like, fuck, we both were in red. And then we had to get back to pleasure. Can you just briefly talk to us? Because I love how you explain it. Your blue, your red, not pleasure, to blue pleasure. Can you talk to us briefly about that?
So this is, and I guess, like, this is in somatics. I got it through Kimberly Ann Johnson, and it goes back into somatics, that instead of saying bad and good, so it feels bad or it feels good, you use the word blue and red. So neutral to pleasurable, you say blue sensations, blue events. And then uncomfortable, discomfort is a red sensation. So it's navigating between red and blue. And that way, because they're also, and again, with chronic illness and stuff, sometimes when you do this work, then even something that is uncomfortable can actually become blue.
Wow.
You can actually find Not all, not always, but
Right.
obvious. And that's where like obviously pain things, or receiving a no can actually be blue,
Mm,
right? Where like surprise can be blue, and it bad, and it depends. But then for somebody else, that's not blue, that it, but somebody love, I love a little pain. I love a little resistance. Somebody,
yes.
and that is blue for me. And then somebody else, that same thing is red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds so, thank you. That's really helpful because I always do different analogies and some people hear different things. And I know for some people that is gonna resonate more than other things. Like, oh, I'm in red right now. Okay, I'm working towards blue. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so tangible, easy. Like, that's so helpful.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us? We'll go back to the hormonal and the health piece of all of this in a second, but like, how do you, because I think I say this all the time, like we talk a lot about like being in your body, like I'm glad this conversation's like happening in the world, but like be in your body, self-love, like it's happening. And I think it also like triggers a lot of people because they're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
And
they're
sometimes
like,
your body hasn't been like, and this makes me cry. Sometimes your body isn't a safe place. Doesn't feel, your own body cannot feel safe because it doesn't feel good. Or you don't know what's going on, when you're in chronic illness, if you've had a really hard miscarriage or a stillbirth, or you don't, and trauma, like that was my whole thing. That's how I came into this work, is that I carried a lot of sexual trauma, really intense things from as a teenager, that I carried, that I wasn't in my body. My body wasn't, it took me a long time to feel safe in my body. So, and I work with people a lot that, it's not always easy to get in your body. It's not easy. So sometimes in some of these exercises, we also like
yes.
slowing down. When we were talking before, there was a moment before where I just had, what was it? But I almost wanted to mention it. Like I just felt like so much tingle across the front of my throat. So just pausing and like, what are three sensations you feel? And it can be really not easy for sometimes. I feel the strap of this sort of bra-like thing I am against the front of my chest. I feel my hair against my neck. I feel my elbow against this table. Coming back into, and what do we feel? Where do we begin and end?
Mm.
A lot of the times, coming back into your feet. So I love, and 3, 2, 1. Okay, the 3, 2, 1. I see three things. I hear two things. I taste or smell one thing. So dropping into present moment awareness, dropping into your body. And this is huge. You can use 3, 2, 1 in sex.
Oh, tell us more.
And you can use it in sensation, right? So when I realized that I was having sex, but I was never there. It was so sad.
You're like, what the fuck?
And what happened was I started doing yoga, and I started paying attention to my body, and where I was in space, and I was having sex, and I was like, wow, sex is fun. And I never knew it. I wasn't here. I wasn't in my body. So sex is a trance state. So this is also the other piece with trauma. Like, so sex it's a trance state. Like a lot, when we go to the movies, we're in a trance state. When we drive, it's a trance state. So you want to be able to trance. You do want to be able to go to energy and go out of your body and go to the cosmos, but you also can't really have the pleasure unless you can come back into the here and now. So you're navigating, you're surfing out of body, in body. You're letting go into surrender in the cosmos and into the energy, so you can have energy orgasms, and you can have laughter orgasms, and you can have love orgasms. And you want to be able to go there, but you can't go there until you can drop into the here and now. So literally noticing and watching your honey touch you. Drop into what are three, see someone, see your honey's cheek, or you're by yourself. What? Not just touch yourself, but watch yourself. What do I see? I see my forearm. I see the line of my shirt on there. 3, 2, 1, hearing, what do I hear? Dropping into your senses, deeply dropping into your senses while you're having sex. So you have these different channels. So you drop into the sensation channel and you open up. So you really hear your honey. You really hear that sound, or you use music, or you hear, sounds of the things you're doing.
Yes.
There's some good sounds that happen there.
It's true. It's
right?
I'm also
Smell.
like, whoa. Yeah.
Up into smell. I love having couples. I do this tantric date night thing and so dropping into your senses. So using 3, 2, 1, if you've been in trauma, if you're dropping into the here and now, really doing it consciously, like noticing, oh shit, I'm not here. Coming back. This is 3 things I feel, 3 things I see, 2 things I hear, dropping into your senses. But smell. I love having people smell each other. Take your honey's forearm or your own and you sniff each other.
Yeah. I'm also thinking my mind is boom, because especially for solo practices, so often, and I try, I encourage clients when we go down this, like, make it a 5 senses reality, but so often with solo practice, it's just that one. It's just genital and the sensation is feeling.
Right.
And so,
it's like, take the vibrator, go to the orgasm, be more of a stress release. And instead, it's like, put on the outfit, or just like you're in your favorite t-shirt, feel your t-shirt on the edge of your body. Do you want some music? Don't go straight to the vibrator. Do not go straight to the vibrator. Take your hand and touch your neck. Stroke your own face. What do I want? Take your nails down. What do I want? Drop into some bigger sensations, smell, whatever it is, and drop into those.
So helpful. It opens up a whole world, where before it feels like, it can feel, I should say, so limiting and small, like, to open up to all the senses, whether it's solo, partners, it's like, it's like, oh my God, like the worlds can erupt. Oh my God, it's so good. I'm like,
there's something in there in the nervous system also too. I'm trying to remember where this comes from, but this idea of also opening up to 2 senses at once, because we can also get stuck in one sensory. So maybe you're used to something. So there's, it's in baby development. That's where I got it. But it applies to sex, but that's where I got it. So if you have a baby and you're just moving with them, but it helps their system to use 2 senses at once. So you do a movement and you go, you have a sound, a song, and you engage to the hearing and the 2 things at once, engage 2 senses at once. And it just opens up your neural system. Same thing. Open up more than 1 sense at a time. Because, you're like, oh, it's all touch. There's a lot of other sensations too.
Yeah. Also, that, the deal. It's like, we're all busy humans and we can easily go on autopilot. So
Right.
often I'm like, let's drop into the senses. And sometimes it's like, oh, it's for some people, it's like 1 doesn't even feel available. So what juicy permission of like, okay, like, let's make it safe to activate 1. And then at the same time, what would it be like to slowly activate 2 at the same time? Like, what a juicy, slow and steady opportunity for us to expand in a safe way.
Yeah. So pleasure. So obviously, there's a whole, there's the whole pleasure conversation. So should we steer back?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, all right. I'm like, this is just so good. But we got to go to the health.
Yeah. So what does, so nobody teaches us that there's a healthy cycle, right? Nobody teaches us. So there's a book called The Fifth Vital Sign. Basically, so that our hormones should be included as a fifth vital sign, and that we can steer the hormones into health. So a healthy menstruation is 28 to 38 days. Every 28 to 38 days, having a menstrual cycle, and your menstrual cycle, a healthy menstrual cycle, is 3 to 5 days of bleeding with no spotting in between. Yes, we have some cramps, but excessive cramping. Anything outside of that, and your gynecologist isn't even really most of the time asking this.
Right.
They're not even, and it's like, oh yeah, that happens to some people. I don't, oh, I have spotting, or oh, I'm bleeding I'm having 2 periods a month. Oh, that does happen. Like, no, anything outside of that is actually out of balance. And there are things we can do to come back into balance. You're out of balance. And so, like, Ayurveda is wonderful, Chinese medicine is wonderful, that these questions, that it's a vital sign, and that we can shift our hormones back into balance. So I do recommend acupuncture. I don't do Ayurveda myself. I've steered towards Chinese medicine, but Ayurveda is amazing. A lot of my friends do Ayurveda to come back. And I do one of the things I offer is vaginal steaming. Right? And vaginal steaming with or without herbs, but the herbs are amazing, is a tool that exists and did exist on every single continent across the globe. That it was culturally, most every culture's had. And it's just another way to have herbs. So you can drink herbs, you can make tea, you can put herbs into a capsule, you can take your face and put over a steaming and breathe in the herbs, and it's going into your mucous membranes with your sinuses. Or you can sit over steaming herbs and it's going into the mucous membrane. From your mucous membrane, it's going into your whole system. So you are delivering herbal medicine, but you're also taking the steam. Even when we take a hot shower and you blow your nose and it's better. So the vagina, the vaginal system, it's the same. There's this mucus in there. And sometimes the mucus is causing stuckness. There's some imbalance, whatever it is, there's some imbalance. So steaming is not the practice. It's not a one diagnosis. It's not just this herb. It's asking the questions about your menstrual system, asking the questions about your cramping, what's going on, taking a full diagnostic picture of what's going on. And then from that, you offer the herbs, you offer a system of how often to steam. And then you're watching your blood, you're watching your cycle. A healthy bleed is bright pink red blood. Whoever tells us that?
Right. Exactly.
You have brown blood, you have dark, something's wrong. If you have brown blood, if you have dark blood, that's old blood. That's shit that's been sitting in your system from the month before or before that. That's not cool. No, every teenager with their first menstruation should have a period lesson. And this is something I need to start offering. And I really want to do this, to have and I have it on my website, like a first moon, that I just tell, to look out for this. When you're bleeding, you do want to take the first 1 to 2 days and chill out. And I love steamy check. I didn't learn this stuff until I was moving into menopause. But, Steamy Chick, Kelly Gazar, her name is Steamy Chick. She's my mentor, my teacher. She's amazing. And her website is amazing to find all the research, the medical research she's done, all the information she offers. But she says, I have it on my calendar when I bleed, and the first 2 days, I'm in bed. I might be working from bed. She has what did she say her kids were at the time that she started? I put a rice cooker on. I put a rice cooker. I have a bunch of food out, and my 4-year-old, I think it was, and my 7-year-old know how to go and get rice and get this. I'm in bed. I've got a heating pad on me. I'm drinking hot tea. I'm resting for those first 2 days. And I schedule that. Now that's hard. Our world doesn't, but what is menstrual health? When you're bleeding, you want to be eating hot foods and having hot liquid, even in June and July in the Northern Hemisphere. And you want hot food, you want warm foods, and you want to stay warm, so some cultures would take a big roll of fabric and you would, when you're bleeding, you wrap and you give support and you keep it warm. And then we got into this fucking, like, you're weak, you're supposed to like take the ibuprofen and go to work.
Yeah.
Go do your yoga practice, do that headstand every day. No, it takes your body a lot to create. And we never learned this. You create an extra pint of blood to bleed.
Wow.
I was always like, I never knew where that stuff came from.
Right.
I thought it was the uterine line. You create an extra pint of blood. So what energy does it take to make an extra pint of blood to then move through you to bleed out? So the amount of energy you've expended, you need to replenish, you need to nourish it. If you don't, and this is where, I wonder it's really hard right now, what's going on with fertility and birthing, like the uterus needs to rest. Your body needs to rest. So there's that, like, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to watch this. We need, and seasonal. So men are on a 24-hour, and I'm going to speak generally across genders here. So, right, penis, bodies, you're on a 24-hour hormonal cycle. And so you can boom, boom, they wake up and they're ready to go. And like a uteral vaginal system is on a moon cycle, is on a month cycle. So we get as much fucking done. It's not like I'm going to take those 2 days off and I'm not getting the same output. I'm going to kick ass when I'm in my like phase where I'm in this phase and I'm going to produce and I'm active and I'm going to boom, 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 and I'm going to really push it. And in that phase where we're resting, we're getting other things done. We're germinating ideas. We're creative. And it's a different kind of output, but we're not. And this is where we get into the toxic patriarchal push. That's not our system. That's not the system that's good for our bodies. So a lot of us are suffering trying to meet this other way,
That's unrealistic.
Yeah.
That's not how we're cyclical.
Yeah. And we're going to do better down the line. We're causing harm. So basically there's things we can do to take care of our system,
I love it.
So just learning basic menstrual health. That's a session just to sit there and talk about your period and what you really could be doing and how to make that happen, and to use steaming the way that is good for your system. Do you have fibroids? Do you have cysts? Are you fertile? Is there a fertility issue? Is it a menstrual issue? Are you in menopause? The steaming is going to be your aid. You're using it throughout your lifetime.
Yeah. And is there anyone because my relationship to steaming has been, to be completely transparent, I'm obsessed with it, very DIY, which is why I want to work with you.
Yeah.
Because I need to be held more deeper, is there anyone, so in my research, is there anyone that it should not be for? Like, I'm assuming like no pregnant people, right? Like,
right. There's lots of contraindications. So you
totally.
So yeah. I mean, it is best to just find somebody like I am, a certified practitioner, and you have what's called a diagnostic session, and you just talk about what's going on, and then, okay, so here I'm hearing this, so do this. And then again, it's troubleshooting. You go first, you use this herb and you do it this many times, and then you watch your blood and you see what's happening, and maybe you have to change it. It's always going to be changing. So you go to somebody who knows. You can also take a course and learn the whole thing. It's not that complicated, really.
Right.
But yes, you do not steam when you're pregnant. You can steam. This is awesome. And I want to get into this more. You can steam right before you go into labor and in the beginning of labor. That's freaking awesome. There's hospitals in Poland, Kelly Gazar on Steamy Chick talks about this. There are hospitals that have been using this, and the outcomes for the labor is tremendously improved. Like the reduced tears, and they've taken the data, reduced tears and reduced amount of time and reduced need of pain medication. So you for labor, you can steam. You don't steam when you're pregnant. You don't steam after, and this is like a no-brainer, after insemination when you're trying to get pregnant. You do steam in the fertility process, but you don't steam then. You don't steam when you're actively bleeding. That's where you can look at spotting and dark blood and somebody's cycle, that it's a little bit of looking at it, but you don't steam when you're in your full flow. Yeah, there's definitely times when you don't.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, you're just amazing, point blank. But you're such an invaluable, like invaluable. Is that the right word? Valuable. I don't know. You're such a great resource. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone can be steamy. It's so sad.
Yes,
it's so sad. And I'm, in blessings, and we're grateful. And this is to talk about decolonizing for a bit. So I'm what's called an experiential practitioner. So I did not learn through my cultural lineage. So I'm of Sicilian and Irish heritage, and there's evidence of steaming happening in Sicily, and definitely there's absolute evidence, like I think it's from the 1600s or 17, 18. And so with this patriarchal takeover of medicine, most cultures lost steaming. So in Italy, it was lost. I haven't found evidence of it in Ireland, but there is evidence of it in England. So I learned through Kelly Gazar, outside of my lineage. She learned as an experiential practitioner outside of her lineage. A lot of us got it through a Korean spa. So there's a beautiful place where we have Korean spas where you can steam. Unfortunately, they're just doing, go ahead and steam, and here's this herb. It's universal. It might not be what's needed. So it's great that we have Korean spas, but it's always not what's right for you, and nobody's there telling you what's right. It might be too much. So she learned in a Korean spa, and then I forget where her lineage is from, but then she found out through her aunties. I think it's somewhere. I think it's Dominican. It's in the Caribbean. And there's still steaming in Korea. There's still steaming in Haiti, in Suriname, and I think those are the three. And then a few places in Africa have been able through the lineage to hold on to it. So sometimes then you have what's called a cultural practitioner that they learned that they learned through their lineage. So Kelly Gazar ended up going back into her lineage and asking her aunties, and that it did exist, but it was something that they were like, oh, we just do it in secret because it's dirty and it's weird and it's not good. It's better to go to the gynecologist. So it became shameful. It was taken away in colonization as cultures came, as slaves came with their practices. Through Africa, it was taken away. Through the Caribbean cultures, it started to be shamed, but it still will exist, and they'll do it in secret or whatever. But it was a herbal medicine that existed in all cultures, and it was taken away in this toxic patriarchal takeover of medicine.
And thank you for talking about that. I really appreciate that, and you're so special, and this work is so special because I didn't know how to DIY, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you said, like I was like, oh, yeah. I'm gonna like, and that's not safe.
Once you learn certain principles, that's the thing. Like I don't want you to have to come to me all the time. You come to me, and it should be very cheap. It should not cost a lot of money. It should be completely accessible. So I will absolutely work with any people of color for like as donation, because as a white person, it's been taken away from your culture. It's been and anybody who can afford it, like I want to just teach you how to do it. We'll have a consultation. Here's what you do. If you're having trouble, come back to me for another issue. Yes. For whatever issue, you come to me in the beginning, and then I'll email you back and forth about how it's going, and trouble, but I want to help you get a seat that you do at your home, and I don't need you to buy a $300 cedar fucking thing that's made. And if you want to, go ahead, but take a chair, take the seat out of the chair, wrap a blanket around you, and sit on a chair without a seat. I use myself a camp chair, a camp toilet chair. So it's on like online for like $30. And it's like a toilet seat that you would take to go camping. And that's
I
what I
love it.
use, and then you
Yeah.
do it at home. And I'll tell you, there's basically a 4 herbal compound recipe that I'll tell you that I know. I'm not a total herbalist, so I don't, and I can look it up. You want an herb that's going to deal with your blood. You want an herb that's going to help with circulation. You want, there's 4 categories. There's like certain categories. You want to hit an herb in each category. So I can give you a 4 recipe herb for what your condition is. Or I can lead you to where to get some really great herbs for that condition. But I want you to be able to do it yourself at home. I do offer, you have a consultation and then we meet and we do it on Zoom, or you come to my living room with my cats and we do it live. I love to do a live stream with someone, and that is like, it's a beautiful session because then you can meditate with what's going on. Maybe you're doing a loving kindness. There's trauma release. It's, there's a lot that I can offer to do a session with you, to do the steam together. And then when you take that water and you pour it out, it's a ritual of releasing and cleansing. Or, and I don't know if sometimes, so sometimes you want to take that water and you want to put it down the toilet. Sometimes you want to take that water and you're good to put it through your kitchen sink. I'm on the 4th floor in Brooklyn, Otherwise, and then I worked with someone who's in the desert. She's like, we never throw water away. Yeah, you take that and you pour it and you give it back to the earth, and the earth transmutes it. Maybe you put it under one tree and you're planting a seed and you're like watering that tree with this, and it's generative, and it's always generative to the earth. Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, well, I can't wait to see you in Brooklyn because I'm coming to you. So I know personally, I'm like, I can't wait. So I could talk to you like we have to do
end,
more
right?
episodes. I know, but I'm like, do we have to? But we have to do more episodes because there's so much more we have to get into. But
we'll do another one,
glad.
because let's just name what we haven't talked about: female ejaculation and the anatomy for the vulvic system, to study your anatomy. So yeah, future podcasts.
Here we go. We got to do it. But before we hop, I love you. I'm literally obsessed with you. I'm like literally coming to your house. So tell the listeners where they can find you so they can either do sessions with you in person, Zoom, they can get to know you. What's your where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website and I'm in the process of making it better and more understandable. I'm so grateful. But it is there, marisasullivanhealing.com, and you'll see my offerings on there. I do these one-on-one sessions of steaming, of sexual empowerment. I have courses that I do online and in person. So I have a few things coming up. I have something live, and I have live in Brooklyn. So this Wheel of Consent, we're going to do it live. Yeah, you totally can do these Wheel of Consent. You could see us do it on Zoom and online, but I'll be live September 18th, Sunday, September 18th in Brooklyn in Gowanus. We're going to do some Wheel of Consent. We're going to do some genital anatomy education. I do tantric date night I have coming up. That's any couples. I have that coming up in September. I have one, Fall Back in Love. We'll do Redigesting Pleasure. So I'm here. I'm on Instagram, Marisa Sullivan 1. Reach out. I do a 15-minute free consultation to talk about what could help you. What would it look like? What could we do in one session? What would a few sessions look like? What can we do?
Yay! Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, thank you
so much. This was so fun. I love going in deep.
Me too. More to come, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today, and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.